Hello, everybody. I hope you all are having a fantastic day. Thank you for joining us here today. My name is Steve Jacobsmeyer, and I'm a CFP professional and financial advisor here at Milestone Financial Planning. If this is your first webinar, welcome aboard. If you're a regular attendee, welcome back. Our goal with these webinars is simple: to bring you practical, relevant financial education that helps you make more informed financial decisions. Today's topic is travel medical insurance. This may not be the first thing you think about when planning a trip, but it can be one of the most important. Feel free to submit questions using the Q&A feature throughout the presentation. I'll do my best to moderate the discussion and make sure we address as many questions as possible. It's my great pleasure to introduce Heidi Bunnell of Affordable Health Solutions located in downtown Portsmouth. Heidi, thank you for joining us today. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you all for joining us. I'm very happy to be here with Milestone Financial Planning. I'm going to go over the basics, the ins and outs of travel medical insurance, and why you should consider getting a policy when you do your international travel. So, travel medical insurance is just short-term insurance for when you're traveling abroad. It covers unexpected illnesses or injuries, and it's different from the regular health insurance that you're used to here in the US, because it is really only valid for when you are traveling. One thing I would like to suggest is when you are getting your quote for wherever you are going, you may want to consider adding a few days, a week or so, depending on where you're going. You may want to tack those on to your actual trip time. My fiance and I will do that quite often when we're traveling internationally, just in case something happens, either while you're there or, you're planning on leaving, say, May 10th, and there's a delay with your plane till the 12th. Well, if you told the insurance company that you were going to be coming back on the 10th, you will no longer have any insurance for any days that you may have past there. So it's another little extra peace of mind if something happens, that you can have coverage for longer than you had anticipated on being out of the country. Um, Domestic health insurance, what you have, typically does not work overseas. A lot of people are surprised to hear that. Depending on what insurance you have, whether it's individual, like with your family, either through the marketplace or direct with one of our New Hampshire insurance carriers, or if you have it through your employer or your spouse's employer, or with Medicare, you really need to pay attention to what you have as for coverage when you go overseas. I'll tell you right now that the individual plans, like I said, either through the marketplace or direct with a carrier, do not cover you when you're overseas. So you definitely want to consider getting some medical travel insurance. Sometimes employers, depending on where they are based out of or headquartered, that's where they get their insurance and what insurance carrier you are with. Some of those plans do embed some international travel insurance programs in them, but you can only be sure if you, well, you can ask your HR, but they don't always know. So I always recommend calling the customer service number on your insurance card, and asking exactly how they would or would not cover you overseas, so you know how to make the best decision of what additional coverage you may need. Healthcare costs can be quite high in different countries. Nobody ever really knows how much it's going to cost for emergency care, even when you're in the US. There's no way to tell, right? I was hospitalized last month for a few days for an unexpected illness, and even I didn't know how much it was going to cost until I saw my explanation of benefits and the bills. So there's really no way to tell how much you could be out of pocket when you're traveling if you are not covered covered and you get ill or injured. Another thing to keep in mind is emergency evacuation. It can cost tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on where you are in the world. Obviously, if you're just sitting on a beach hanging out in Puerto Rico, for example, there could be easy evacuation to a quality hospital. But if you're, out in the middle of the South Pacific, traveling around some islands, there may not be anything close by, and it could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to get you to some emergency care. So it's really a peace of mind, and it's not a huge additional cost for you. It covers emergency medical treatments for illnesses or injuries that most people do not foresee. It covers your hospital stays, doctor visits, possibly lab work, radiology tests, things like that, that you need to have because of that injury or illness. Also, prescription medications can be covered, whether they are prescriptions that are newly prescribed for you due to that injury or illness, or perhaps you lost a bottle of your prescription medication that you take regularly. You can get those covered through your policy so you don't miss any doses. Again, it covers that emergency medical evacuation to get you to a hospital. And it also covers repatriation, which is very important to have because if for some reason you need to come back to the US, either for follow-up care immediately or to have some type of surgery or something, because the US is the only place where you can get it, once you are stable wherever you are, to be able to come back to the US, it covers that. It also covers if for some reason someone passes away while they're on their trip. It helps return their remains as well as, your loved ones that you may be on this trip with. So again, it's peace of mind for those things that may happen. These are things that are usually not covered, pre-existing conditions. Again, you want to talk to the insurance carrier that you're getting this policy with to see how they cover pre-existing conditions. And they may have different look back periods when they want to look back to see how long you have had this condition. It could be 3 years, it could be just 90 days, 30 days. You want to see, if you have some condition going on before you go on your trip to see if anything that may come up could be covered. It doesn't cover routine checkups or elective procedures. I know some people like to go to other countries to save money, like for eye surgeries or cosmetic surgeries, things like that. You're more than welcome to go do that to save some money, but medical travel insurance policy is not going to cover that. So it's all out of pocket. And then injuries from risky activities. So, if you're going to go zip lining or paragliding or jumping out of a plane, things like that when you're on your trip, they do not cover that in the regular policy. You'll need to do an add-on. They call it a rider. And as you'll see later on in this presentation, they're really not that much more money to add on if you're going to partake in those activities, because that's when it happens, right? That's when you get injured, and you're going to want to be covered. The medical policies also do not cover travel cancellations and trip delays. You're going to want to get a separate policy for that, or there are some that are combined, but you're going to want to add that on if that's important to you. I know there's some group tours out there that people go on, and they include the travel cancellations and trip delays. So you would be fine just going with the medical insurance. So if you're going to go with a group like that, you're going to want to ask them what they include for insurance. So there's many, many types of plans that you can go with within these levels of plans. So the single trips, obviously, it's one trip. You're going to Costa Rica in August. You just put in that destination for your quote along with the days that you're going, and you're all set covered. If you're someone that likes to travel frequently outside of the US, you may want to look at their multi-trip plans. That way, you may be able to save some money on your premiums um, rather than getting like three separate single trip plans each time you travel. You can buy uh, a multi-trip plan that covers you for 12 months, and you can go multiple times. Um, Comprehensive plans are the plans that include the trip protection. So you could get trip cancellation and delays, as well as medical insurance. And then there's the medical only. Um, so those are the main levels of plans. And again, there's many in between. I would also like to point out just on personal experience. If you don't have trip protection with, like, say, a group that you're going on tour with, it's not that much more to have the dual medical and trip cancellation, or just adding that on. I would highly suggest paying a little bit extra as well to get cancel for any reason. Um, this past spring, my fiance and I were supposed to be going to Abu Dhabi in the Middle East and sailing in the Maldives. We had planned this trip for quite some time, looking forward to leaving on March 1st. So we had the medical and the travel, but we didn't include the cancel for any reason. And as you know, on February 28th, the day before we're leaving, the United States bombed Iran, so we could not leave and go to the Middle East. Um, because we didn't get the cancel for any reason, we lost some money because in the fine print, it says acts of war, government unrest, things like that on just a regular cancellation policy um, are not covered. So they decide, well, yes, that's an act of war, so we're not going to cover it. We were lucky to get some money back because they were nice enough to refund us. But you really want to read the fine print and think about adding on that cancel for any reason because you'll be totally covered that way. There's several features that you can think about when you're going to be looking for your premium for these plans. The coverage limits, they range from 50,000, some, maybe 25,000, but they go up to 1 million, 5 million. I've seen them as high as 8 and 10 million. So you can obviously change your premium by getting a lower benefit at 50,000 compared to the million. You really need to think about where you're going and how much you feel comfortable with for coverage, knowing that evacuation, repatriation could be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. I would suggest going with a million or more. And as you'll see on a following screen, that it's really pretty affordable when you think about it compared to the cost that you could have. So it's a really great financial protection for you. Deductibles also help adjust the premium. Um, Deductibles are your out-of-pocket costs that you have before the policy will pay. So if you had a zero deductible, you wouldn't have to pay anything out of pocket. The plan would start paying at 100%. To reduce your premium, you could go with a higher deductible, say $1,000 that you would pay out of pocket, and then the plan would pay. But that ranges as well. So you have a lot of options when you're looking at your premium for these types of plans. Um, the hospitals and doctors, each insurance carrier has their own network of them. And one great option that they have is once you have your policy, you can go to their find a doctor feature, and you can do a search for the town, the city, the country where you're going to be. And you can search for those hospitals and doctors that are close by where you're going to be. And I would highly suggest writing those names down, the addresses, the phone numbers. So just in case something does happen, you already know who you need to contact in that area, so they are in network. Another great benefit that's available is 24/7 assistance emergency services. You have any questions about your policy, you end up having an emergency, and you want to ask questions about coverages. It's really great to have that. You don't have to worry about only calling, between 9 and 5 Eastern Standard Time. As you know, you're out of the country, there's time differences. So you don't have to worry about that either. So that's a nice feature. And again, that evacuation coverage that you would not have normally with traditional health insurance, you're paying for all those evacuations and repatriations back to the US. Um, the main cost factors when you first start out trying to figure out what type of coverage you want to go with. Age, of course, is the number one factor. Just like with our health insurance here in the States, you pay lower costs the younger you are for your premium. Also, the trip duration, how long you're going for, obviously is going to affect how much it's going to cost. But again, there's not a large increase in premium, adding a few days or a week, like I had mentioned at the beginning, that I like to do, just in case something comes up and you're delayed or you get injured a couple days before you're supposed to leave and you can't leave. You're going to pay full costs if you've said you're leaving on that day and you're still there. So just think about that in the back of your mind when you're deciding how long you're going to say you're gone. It just gives you another little extra peace of mind there. The country where you're going is going to affect your costs. Going to, down to St. Martin's or something is probably going to cost you less sitting there on the beach than on a trip I saw recently where you're going hiking in the mountains in Afghanistan. I don't think I would really like to do that, but some people do, and you're obviously going to pay a lot more for hiking in Afghanistan than sitting on a beach in the Caribbean. The coverage amount that you want to go for, the benefit amount that you would like. Do you want only $50,000? Take your chance that that's, going to cover you, or do you think, what, it's going to cost me a lot to get out of this sailing trip in the Indian Ocean. I should probably go with a $2 million policy. Which reminds me, you want to make sure you get the coverage amount that perhaps some tour that you may be going on during your trip requires. Make sure you read their fine print too, what they need you to get. When we were going to be going to the Maldives that we didn't get to do this spring, part of our trip was sailing on a sailboat with some other people, and they told us for insurance we needed to get a $2 million benefit in case anything happened out on the ocean and we needed to be evacuated. So make sure if you're doing something like that within your trip that you're getting the proper amount as well. And then again, additional costs for those add-ons. If you add on the trip cancellation, if you add on the adventure sports riders, they have other little add-ons. They have device protection add-on. I think I saw one for like $4. So you could do things like that if that's important to you. There's lots of different little things that you can add on. Um, So for example, this may be a little bit high, it might be low, who knows? Let's say you're wearing your cute little new high heel shoes, walking down the little cobblestone streets in Barcelona, and you trip and you break your leg, right? Let's say that particular hospital, all the costs with it, the x-rays, MRIs, tests, whatever, it's $15,000. Without the medical insurance, you're paying all of that. And a lot of the hospitals in other countries like that money up front. So you're on the hook for, let's say, $15,000, and you've already paid all this money to go on this trip. That's quite an expense. If you had the travel medical insurance, you would pretty much be paying nothing. So here is where you can see how little plans can cost for you. This is a sample for just a medical policy for a 35-year-old male for a 3-week trip, and I chose the Netherlands. So you can see here on the left-hand side shows those deductibles, which is your out-of-pocket costs before the plan pays. And you can see that range of 0, 100, 500, 5,000 up to 25. And then across the top, you see the benefits. So there's many different plans you can look at. I would have to show you a lot more slides to give you every possibility for ages and durations and where they're going and the different policy maximums. But just for, um, comparison sakes, this one has these deductibles and maxes. I chose, as you can see, $8 million coverage. You're good for hopefully a lot of coverage with that, and you won't have to pay anything with a zero deductible. $87.68 for 3 weeks. So if you think about that, that's a pretty low cost, and you really don't need to worry about any medical costs with something like that for $87. I did put in the quote optional trip cancellation to see what that would look like. And I put in, you have to put in how much your trip costs. So I just put in $4,000. That could be on the low side for a 3-week trip, but just for the heck of it, I put in 4,000. And for the trip cancellation, it would be another $86. So you're still looking at under $175 for 3 weeks, covered $8 million in medical costs and trip cancellation. So it's pretty affordable. And then for the extreme sports rider, it was only $11. So very affordable if you're going to be um, going overseas and you want to have a peace of mind. So in contrast, I did a 67-year-old for only a week in Peru. Again, medical only plan. You can see the difference in this. I didn't choose the $1 million. That is the only option you get for this particular plan. It's the same plan as the one I showed you previously for the 35-year-old, but it only gives you the option of 1 million. It gives you the same deductible levels, but only up to 1 million. So this shows you that the company for this plan, they would much rather take a risk that they would have to pay up to $8 million for a 35-year-old than for a 67-year-old. So still pretty low cost though, $88 for a week, $1 million in coverage. Um, it's a really great price, I think, to really consider if you're traveling, just so you don't have to worry about it, because your cost could be a lot more than that. $88 if you get injured or sick. I added on trip cancellation again for this one. I put in $2,500 for the cost of the trip, and it was an additional $71. So again, around $150, you have trip cancellation, and you have up to $1 million in medical coverage. One thing to point out though is I tried to put on a sports rider, the extreme sports rider, and it's not available. So I guess they don't want 67-year-olds jumping out of airplanes, that it's too much of a risk for them to have to pay out. Speaking of older adults, I do want to point out some facts about Medicare when you are abroad. Um, when you have original Medicare, your red, white, and blue card, parts A and B, there is no routine coverage abroad, and there is no medical evacuation or repatriation. So you are on the hook for all the costs of that if you just had Medicare. Now, some people have Medicare Advantage plans or Part C, as you know them. Um, some of them do have limited emergency coverage. They do have caps, how much they're going to reimburse you. There's some copays. Some have, $200 copays. Some have no copays. They widely range in what their caps are, what they're going to pay for. Um, and there is usually no evacuation or repatriation. They would just possibly help with some emergency costs, but not the evacuations, as well as like some supplement or Medigap plans that people have along with original Medicare. Some of them do cover up to $50,000 when you're traveling abroad, but that's a lifetime limit. So if you think about it, that might not be enough considering the different things that could happen to you while you're traveling abroad, especially where those medical evacuations and repatriations can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Um, the best way to know, again, just like with your individual plans or your employer plans, if you have Medicare, whether you have an Advantage plan or a supplement, call the number on your card and talk to the customer service or look at the fine print in your summary of benefits and your evidence of coverage that the insurance company gives you. But I find it much easier just to call them and ask them what your particular plan offers. So then you know, okay, I should get some extra coverage so I feel protected because it's basically insufficient no matter what insurance you have. So when you're thinking about choosing the plan, again, you want to think about where in the world you are going. Again, easy beach vacation, just hanging out in a place that is close to a city center. Your risk is pretty low. Whereas, like I said, if you're going hiking in the Afghanistan mountains or you're traveling out in the middle of the ocean where you're not close to anything, you're going to want to have higher coverage. Um, Again, check your current insurance, whether it's Medicare, employer insurance, the individual, which I said does not cover you abroad, for the individual in New Hampshire, but check what is covered, what is not, just so you have, um, a better understanding of what you need in addition. Comparing multiple plans, like I said, there's many, many plans you can choose from, many deductible levels, many benefits that are included. You want to find out what is best for you and where you are going and what your medical needs are and what you feel comfortable with in paying for a premium. And I cannot stress enough, read the fine print very carefully, especially if you're getting that trip cancellation on top of it. You want to know how and when and all of that, how to cancel. You really want to understand what your options are. And if you're going to some remote places, you definitely want to get that high evacuation coverage. If you're in a, pretty uh, big city, you're in a European city, like I said, like Barcelona, Madrid, Venice, you're somewhere where there's lots of coverage um, available to you. That's one thing. But if you're going to remote places, you're going to want to get that higher evacuation coverage so you are able to go to a quality facility that can really help you. A couple tips before you leave for your destination. Obviously, you're going to want to carry those insurance cards. One of the companies that we work with, they send you quite a few documents, certificates, all sorts of information. I would print all of that out, bring it with you. Also, print out another couple copies possibly and give them to one of your loved ones, your emergency contacts back here at home. So if something happens to you and either like you lose your card or the certificate, you're not sure what it covers, you can't find the phone number, your family or friend back at home will have all of your information. They'll have your policy numbers, things like that, so they can help you, or they can call the insurance company on your behalf if needed. It's always great to leave all those documents here with someone at home, as well as having it on your person. And emergency contacts, I would put into your phone the phone number of the insurance company. I would put in, like I said, when you search their doctor networks, put in some doctors or hospitals that are going to be close by to you. Make sure you have those numbers with you just in case. It only takes you a few minutes and it will save you some stress. Because if you get sick or injured while you're traveling in, in an unfamiliar place, it's going to get quite stressful quite quickly. I mean, it's stressful enough when you're here in the US and you have an emergency. You can only imagine tenfold how much it's going to be when you're traveling. Understand the claim procedures, know how long you have to file a claim, know what you need to file the claims. Make sure you keep receipts, documents, hospital bills, doctor bills, anything, prescription medicine costs. Keep everything. I learned to do that on previous trips. I was even taking screenshots that when I saw like on Facebook from United Arab Emirates or the State Department, they would put out alerts. And so I would take screenshots of that. And I sent that when I was filing my claim, all of that stuff. They want credit card receipts for things. They want to see statements sometimes. So make sure you just keep everything. And after you pay for things, like even download your credit card statement or your bank statement so you have it in multiple places so they know what you've been spending if you have to pay for things up front. I can't stress enough to keep documents and receipts for all of this stuff. So hopefully you have a better understanding about how important it is to have medical insurance when you're traveling overseas. You know, you may have some coverage with some of those Medicare plans. You may that feel comfortable enough to you, and that's fine. You may have some embedded in an employer plan that you have, and that's fine. But you see, it's not that expensive. Overall, you're paying hundreds, thousands of dollars for these trips. What's another $88 to have that peace of mind? And again, always read the coverage, ask questions, read that fine print because it's definitely better to be safe than sorry. And I would be happy to answer questions if there are any.
Thank you so much, Heidi. As insurance advisors, we know that insurance is best used for low probability but high impact
Exactly.
events, and this sounds like the exact type of thing that insurance can cover. And I'm particularly surprised at how reasonably priced these policies are.
Yeah,
Um,
it's very surprising, and like I said, you can play with the deductibles, you can play with the coverage amounts. Some people don't need 8 million. Some people are fine with taking a chance. Oh, I'll pay 5,000 out of pocket, and just only have to pay like $30 for this policy. You still have that peace of mind and knowing that your costs are capped at $5,000.
For sure. And I think I know myself, I've had plenty of family medical issues while traveling. So this stuff does happen, and it can be very expensive without the coverage. A couple questions here. What are your favorite or some of the best insurance carriers for med-only coverage in Europe? Do you have any favorite carriers in mind?
Yes, it's actually one like when I travel, I choose this one company because they have been very easy to work with. IMG, tr International Travel Insurance. Um, they have great prices. They have very clear benefits that are available to you that you can choose and pick from. So I would suggest looking at them. And I have the capability of being behind the scenes and helping decipher what all of the different nuances are with them. So, if anyone has any trips coming up and they would like to know more about what would really work for them for coverage, for their risks and stuff like that, I would be happy to walk through plans with you and show you like what it would cost for you and like your family friends, whatnot. I'd be happy to go more into detail because there is a lot more to go into detail with than I could cover here.
Thank you. I know Affordable Health Solutions has been a great partner for Milestone and its clients, and we appreciate that. So, in essence, you're an agent, and you can help with the placement or the purchase of these policies.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
And we are independent agents. So what that means is we're not beholden to any insurance company. Whether it's travel insurance or Medicare or insurance for your employees or for yourself. We just work with you to help you find what works for you best for your pocketbook as well as for your health needs. We're not tied to any particular agent, insurance carrier.
Okay, great. That's very helpful. You're a great resource. Do you know of any online websites that you can use to comparison shop these policies, or is it really best to work, through an agent like yourself?
Yeah, I mean there's a lot out there. You just really need to be careful, as well as with domestic health insurance here in the US. There are a lot of scams out there, and you really need to be sure what you are paying for. For example, we have had clients call us because they went off and got insurance, health insurance on their own, and then they went to the doctor with their card and they were like, "What is this? This isn't insurance," and they've been paying $600 a month for it. So
Mm.
that happens more often than you would realize. So the same could go with travel insurance. You think you're all set for a trip, to Thailand, and something happens to you and you're not covered. It was a total scam. So, there's plenty of online searches you can do and you can compare yourself. But I would caution you to make sure that you're not being scammed. And it does help working with an agent to help you make sure you're within a legitimate company. And it costs nothing to work with us.
Are there any state residency issues involved, or you can offer this to U.S. citizens in essence?
I am licensed in New Hampshire and Maine. So if
Yep.
you're in New Hampshire and Maine, feel free to ask me to help you decipher all the different plan options, and we can help you find something that's great for you. We do have colleagues that are licensed in other states. So if you were like in Florida or something, I could most likely ask one of my colleagues that's licensed there to help you.
Great. Appreciate the comments, Heidi. I just want to thank you so much for your presentation today. It was very good. You're a great speaker. We're sorry on behalf of a attendee that you lost your trip earlier.
Yeah,
Um,
we were lucky to get some back, but for the most part, we lost out on our sailing trip because even though they understood we couldn't get to our final destination because we couldn't go through the Middle East, they were like, sorry.
well,
So
well, again, thank you. And I would just suggest if anybody has any follow-up questions, to please reach out to their Milestone advisor. And I want to thank everyone for attending. Have a great day.
thank you.